What is good, YouTube? My name is Ash Porter and welcome to my channel. Today for you guys, I'm going to be reviewing every single book I read in 2021. So to do this, I'm going to be using the help of my Goodreads account that has my reading challenge for the year. I'm going to put the link below in the description so you can check out what I've been reading yourself, but I'm going to be going through them, reviewing them anyway. And just before I start as well, I just thought it's worth saying that what did I think of my year of reading? I was expecting, if I'm honest, to read a bit more than I read this year. And so I'm actually, to be honest, I wouldn't say disappointed. I'm still happy with how much I've read this year, but I feel like it could have been more. That's mainly because throughout sort of the month of November, I hardly touched a book because I was kind of on like a mental health little break. Especially since a lot of what I've been reading I've then been putting onto YouTube, and so I just kind of took a break from reading for a while, didn't pick up a book, and so obviously that set me back quite a lot. However, I'm still really happy, I'm still excited to share with you what I've read, so let's get into it. So number one, Omnivores Dilemma by Michael Pollan. Now, what a book. This is just like a deep dive into food, into our diet, why we eat what we eat, and I really enjoyed this. I think mainly because it's so rich in his storytelling, his experience researching for this book. Number two, Artemis. Wow, well, I never really read anything spacey. I've never really read space science fiction before, but this was really good. It was my introduction into Andy Weir, I think that's how you say his name, and I'm definitely going to be reading him more, but it was a gripping book, one that I shared with friends who don't read a lot and they loved it as well, and so that always says it's a sign of good book. Faith, Hope and Mischief. All I can say about this is a cute, delicate, beautiful and inspirational book written by an inspirational guy sharing his faith, living his life to the fullest. Well worth a read. The Great Gatsby. Now, this was an absolute banger. This was a top tier book, but to this day, and I will always say it, Daisy Buchanan, I hate you. Tribe. This, again, another fantastic book. You're gonna hear me say that a lot, but I think what was great about this, because it looked at why we need community, why we need tribes, where that comes from, the roots of that, how it's changed over the course of the last few centuries. And yeah, it just emphasizes community. Find your family, find your friends, delve deep into them. Warlord, the final book of the Saxon stories, the final book of Uhtred, and it was a banger, absolute banger. I think I remember saying in my review I was a bit gutted with the final battle. It didn't feel, I don't know, I just wanted more from it, but as a finale to a big series, a finale to characters I loved it. Uhtred of Bebbanburg, Finan, absolute ballers. Stories from the Streets. Now this is a really interesting little book looking at street passes, a little organisation, not a little, quite a big organisation, which in the UK and I think in other countries as well, on nights out they're giving out water, giving out flip-flops, giving people somewhere safe, helping people get into taxis, all that kind of stuff, and just serving people. And this is a little insight into someone who does that. The Fantastic Beasts 1 script. It was alright, I think, I've seen the film, it's a good film, you're just reading sort of the script. Yeah, it's fine. The Power of Habit. What a book. It's one of my all-time favourite books. It was the second or third time, I can't remember, that I've read it. Absolutely phenomenal. You can always learn something new when you reread a book like this. It's life-shaping, life-changing. Give this book a read. The Slight Edge. Now this is one that I was given by my wife's boss, and I was unsure, to say the least. I was unsure about this book. I was is it going to be incredibly American and cheesy? But actually what I loved about this is that throughout the whole book there's this really consistent message of turn up, and you'll gain the slight edge. I love that. I think it's really important, and actually it turned out to be a great book. The Beekeeper of Aleppo. Wow, what a heartbreaker. Again, I'd never kind of read a book like this. I'm so used to reading fantasy or historical fiction, and I tried to branch out a little bit, and oh my gosh, this book captivated me. It broke my heart. It gave me insight into, a world which, to be honest, I was probably pretty naive about. And yeah, you can't not have your heart broken for refugees, for people like that across the globe after reading this book. A Brief Theology of Sport. This was a book by one of my lecturers and actually like my tutor, my formation tutor while I was at uni. It was a really interesting read. I love him. Lincoln Harvey's a great guy, and I loved reading his book on like how should Christians view sport? Like, what's a theology of sport? And basically saying, that play is part of life. Play is part of this life God has given to us, and so actually sport, although it can't be the most important thing, it's part of our playfulness. The Falcon of Sparta, a historical fiction of tremendous quality. Again, I was gripped throughout. I was on the edge of my seat reading this book, like following just the journey of these Spartans basically trying to escape from 500,000 Persians. Absolutely mental, traveling hundreds of miles. Insane. Read this if you want to take great photographs. This bit is a bit of a cheese one. It wasn't like a real proper read, but actually it is a great book. If, like me, start of this year, I was new to photography. I was trying it out for the first time. And this book helped give me a bit of insight, helped me around my camera a little bit, helped me understand the settings and things like that. And also, it's great for a little bit of photography inspiration. The Book Thief, a great insight of historical fiction into the life of your average German citizen during World War II, and how that they weren't all Nazis, they weren't all part of that regime, and they suffered because of it. The Road. So this has my boy Aragon in the film, but I'd seen the film like when I was younger. I was really interested to read the book, and again, this is such a unique apocalyptic book. I can only say the writing style is unique, the storytelling is immense. 10 out of 10. The Fifth Law. Now, what I want to say about this book is it was not my favourite book. So although there's some really cool concepts in it, especially the concept that 50 Cent talks about how any great artist, creative thinker needs to learn to use and harness boredom, because that's when our imagination can be at its best. Plus it's about a bit of determination, powering through. Actually, there was a lot of stuff in this book that I thought was not great, about manipulation to get what you want, all that kind of stuff. An interesting book. The Handmaid's Tale. Okay, there's a reason why this is called a classic. Absolute madness. Absolute, incredible storytelling, great characters, a world which I just dread the thought of, but also it's so close to reality. It's weird. Beautiful Resistance. Now, if I'm going to be honest, on my list I haven't got a lot of Christian books, and that's because I don't love reading them, although I know they're important. And again, this is one of them which there was some really beautiful chapters and some really good bits in it, but it wasn't everything I wanted it to be. The Testament, the long-awaited sequel, which for me was literally days later, but for many people it's like 30 years or something, even longer later from the original book. Wow, what a sequel. Wow, what a way to continue the story. Absolutely love it. Great insight, great plot twists. Quality book. Thinking Fast and Slow. Okay, this book is an absolute must read. This is Daniel Kahneman's life's work put into a book. A beautiful understanding about decision making and rationality and statistics and how that all links together. And even someone who's I don't really care about statistics, actually this made me realise the importance of it in our decision making, and it is well worth a read. Dune, one of the biggest films of the year, one of my favourite films of the year, and a book I needed to read before I saw the film. Absolutely phenomenal. It is one of those books that you need to use the index or the table of reference or whatever it is at the end that helps you understand some of the words, some of this fictional world, and it takes about 150 pages for you to really immerse yourself in the world if it's your first time reading it. But once you've got through that, once you understand a bit of what's going on, what an experience. The Great Divorce. So My one exception with Christian books is I flipping love C.S. Lewis, and so I am slowly working through all of his stuff, and I didn't know what to expect of this. I didn't know what this book was about, but it turns out to be a beautiful story, sort of, that unravels his thoughts and his, I wouldn't say understanding, but I think his thoughts and ideas about what heaven and our relationship with that could be like. Dune Messiah. So this is the sequel to Dune, the second book in the series, and was it better than Dune? Absolutely not. But is it worth the read? Absolutely. It continues the story, especially around Paul, and I did enjoy it. Failing Forward. Again, I think this is an essential read, all about how to overcome failure, how to literally pick yourself up and go again and harness failure so it isn't something that sets us back and keeps us down, but helps us to learn and grow and move forward. Children of Dune. So again, continuing the Dune series, I enjoyed it, I didn't love it, and I was happy when it ended. However, I am going to continue reading the other ones probably in 2022, but I definitely got to the end of it and I was like, I need a break from this series. The Way of the Word. This is a cute little book that my dad recommended to me, and it's just it's very poetic, and it's a kind of like based in not even Dark Ages England. There's a lot of like pagan mythology and themes in it, and a really beautiful story. Outlaw, the start of one of my favourite book series. Robin Hood, Alan Dale, what more is there to say? Foundations, the first book of Peter Ackroyd's, I think, 6-part series on the history of England, and actually, so far, my favourite. I really enjoy this book. It covers a huge expanse of English history from the very beginnings that we hardly know any about until kind of like as we're getting more into the medieval times. I absolutely loved it. It covered some of my favourite time periods. Well worth a read. Holy Warrior, Book 2 of Outlaw, The Crusades, Beneath the Surface. Now this is an absolute belter of a book. Again, orcas have become one of my favourite animals. I think there's something so beautiful, so captivating about them, about their intelligence, but also something so sad about the captivity and the way they've been treated over the last 50, 60, 70 years by humans. This is a brilliant insight into the life at SeaWorld by someone who was a top orca trainer, and kind of exposing all the horrific stuff that goes on. King's Man, Book 3, Robin Hood. Warlord, Book 4 of the Outlaw Chronicles. Little John and Robin Hood walking through the forest. Ooda-lally, ooda-lally, ooda-lally. Ooh. Grail Knight. If you can't tell at this point, I was binging these books, reading them for the second time. I was getting through them even faster, still loving it. Grail Knight in particular is a fantastic part of the series. A lot of heartbreaking moments, incredible storytelling, and it's a bit out of all of the 9 books, it's the one that's got the most fantasy on top of the historical fiction. Why Nations Fail. Now this is a bit of a rogue one, but something my brother-in-law recommended to me, and what a book. And the title kind of says what it's about. It goes into the history of nations and establishes why some nations succeed, and by succeed they mean become financially stable and powerful in the way that you look at England, America, modern day China, like places like that. Or maybe not China, that might be a bad example. And then also looking at why a lot of nations fail, why they can't find that stability. Iron Castle. They're trying to keep France, man. It's hectic. What a book. King's Assassin. I feel like I just realised with these Outlaw Chronicles, the title really does give away a lot in these books. The Tudors. Book 2 of Peter Ackroyd's History of England. Again, I enjoyed the first one so much. The others haven't quite compared. Though I will say again, if you're interested in the Tudor period, this is a great story-driven dive into that period of England. The Death of Robin Hood, the end of the Chronicles. Absolute belter of a book. Has me in tears at the end, the both times I've read it. What more can you ask? The Final Empire, Mistborn Book 1, and the start of my mind being blown away, frazzled, opened to Brandon Sanderson, the world of Mistborn, Scardrill. Yeah, start reading these books. Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. I read this book because I knew nothing about space. It was something that I was like vaguely aware of, kind of knew some concepts. And this is an incredible, small, condensed, but easily readable, easily understandable, and full of information little dive into astrophysics, into the science of space, and giving you a foundational knowledge. I loved it. Absolutely worth a read. The Weight of Glory. This is like a series of essays by C.S. Lewis, again about the Christian faith. Might be worth a read if that's something that interests you. I really enjoyed it myself. The Grapes of Wrath. Now, again, going into this, I didn't realise how successful John Steinbeck was outside of Mice and Men, which I read when I was in school in English. But this book, holy, what a book. And what I love about this book is it's not just story, it's an attack on the problems within the culture and the society he lived in. I really love that. I really love that he was willing to highlight and put himself out there for the sake of trying to help people. The Well of Ascension, Mistborn Book 2, holy moly. Honestly, this original trilogy just gets better book by book. It's phenomenal. Civil War. This was better, I'd say, than the Tudors. I enjoyed it because this was an area of history in England that I didn't know loads about, and actually it was interesting learning about our Civil War, learning about the different factors and sides. But again, I didn't love it. However, Ackroyd's way of telling history is still phenomenal. So Robin Hood and the Caliph's Gold. So I thought the Outlaw Chronicles was 8 books. When I originally read them, there was just 8, but apparently Angus Donald's been writing these extra little mini books that fit in, and it fits in between book 2 and book 3, and it was all right, it wasn't my favourite. I didn't feel like it was needed, but I also enjoyed being with those characters again. Atomic Habits. Now, again, this is a absolute must-read book. I promise. This is not me exaggerating. This book could change your life. The Hero of Ages, the end of the Mistborn 3-book trilogy. Honestly, it blew my mind. I think what the best thing about the Mistborn books is the character arcs and how some minor characters become such huge characters by the end of the story and play such significant roles, and I love that. Jesus on Leadership, a deep dive into what Jesus thought about leadership, what he modelled on leadership. And as a Christian, this is something I strive to go after and be like, because I want to be the best leader I can be, but I also want to be like Jesus. So well worth a read. The Wind in the Willows, a classic. I loved the film growing up, and I didn't even realise till much later in life that the film came from a book, this book, and it is again a beautiful children's book. But what it really highlighted to me is how nowadays children's books are so dumbed down, whereas this is a children's book, many years ago, and it reads like an adult fiction book nowadays, and so I think that's really interesting. The Alloy of Law. So this is Mistborn Book 4, but the Wax and Wayne series Book 1. It's 300 years after the Mistborn trilogy in the same world, same but slightly different magic system. Incredible start. Wax and Wayne are phenomenal. Leading Out of Who You Are. I love this book because it's all about leadership, and it's all about, overcoming security, sorting out your baggage and allowing you to lead as your true self. Angels and Demons. A great book. Again, I think I saw the film when it came out, 10, 15 years ago, however long it was, and I really enjoyed it. I always wanted to sit down and read this series, and you know what? I really loved Angels and Demons. I love the puzzle and the storytelling, and just to be honest, how clever Dan Brown is to craft that. Revolution, not my favourite book ever, but again, that's not because of Peter Ackroyd, that's probably just because of my interest in the subject. Shadows of Self, a continuation of Wax and Wayne. As these books go on, I just fell in love, particularly more and more with Wayne's character. Absolute phenomenon. To Kill a Mockingbird, another classic, another book I just had to read on the list of 100 books everyone should read. unbelievable. Like, again, beautiful. And I think these classic books, what I think you realise is the beauty of what's been crafted. I'm not saying modern books don't have that, but it's just different. Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. Wowza, a 10 out of 10 book, literally looking at a brief history of humanity, of our humankind for over hundreds of thousands of years. Absolutely incredible. Again, it's so worth a read in trying to understand where we came from, why we do a lot of what we do, and the patterns that repeat and repeat that I think we should become aware of. The Bands of Mourning, book 3 of the Wax and Wane. Again, incredible. And all I want to say about this is the ending of this book. I was like, I need the 4th book right now. And I was absolutely devastated to hear that it's not coming out till like late next year. Oh my gosh, I can't wait for that book. The Happiness Advantage, as a concept, a really, really good book, some really good points in it. I did have a few problems with it and I made a video about that, but I think actually it's really good at helping us understand how happiness can be our advantage. The Da Vinci Code, you know what? I don't know why they made this into a film first, because I actually think Angels and Demons was the better book. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the Da Vinci Code, but I did prefer Angels and Demons. The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs. I loved dinosaurs growing up, but I never really learnt about them. Again, just like Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, this is an incredible foundational dive into like a beginner level, but deep still understanding of dinosaurs and their history. Absolutely loved it, and incredible storytelling within it. The Eye of the World. This is the first book of the Wheel of Time. When I saw that Amazon was making this into a series, I knew I had to start reading these books before it came out, and I managed to read this one before the first series came out, and I'm so glad I did. It's a deep, deep world. If you know the Wheel of Time, you know it is deep. There's like 14 humongous books in the series, but this is a great introduction. Oliver Twist, another classic, and I think what this book does is, again, it's an attack on society that Dickens does just like Steinbeck, and I love that, but it also just exposes like the best and worst of humanity. Dominion, we're getting closer to finishing Peter Ackroyd's history. This is book 5, it was okay. Flawless Consulting, this book is really good. You know, it isn't a book that should be sat down and read in the way I did, you know, my morning reading a chunk every morning. This is a book which you read as you're trying to do this stuff, as you're trying to work it out, because it's incredibly practical, and it's definitely a book I'm going to keep and I'm going to refer back to in the future. The Great Hunt, book 2 of the Wheel of Time, a great book. Really good book. I particularly loved the ending of this book. Again, just like some of the other books I've mentioned this year, it just left me desperate to read the next one. Why We Sleep. So this is the second time I've read this book, and again, just like The Power of Habit, this is why you reread books, is because there's so much you can take in, so much that you probably missed the first time, so much you can continue to learn. And sleep is important, guys. Sleep is so, so important. And the final one that I've finished is Rest. Again, this, although it's meant to be about rest, actually really what it's about is the relationship between rest and work, particularly for thinkers and creators. You know, there is stuff relevant to other fields of work and labour, but it is particularly for people who, you know, sit at desks thinking of ideas, or creatives, or that kind of stuff. And the final 2 books I want to talk about are 2 that I'm currently reading, and because it's only, the 22nd of December as I'm recording this, I'm probably going to finish them. The first one is The Dragon Reborn, The Wheel of Time, book 3, and what I'm loving about this book is that compared to the previous 2 books where the perspectives are a bit more limited, you're seeing a range of character perspectives and storylines in this book, and I'm really, really enjoying that. And then the final book I'll probably finish of the year is this, Shoe Dog. This has been on my reading list for ages. I know everyone raves about it, and I'm 40 pages in, around that, and already I'm hooked. I can see how you could literally just sit down and read this and learn so much from a guy who so far is so brave and so risky for the sake of adventure and living life. And that is everything I've read in 2021. I loved pretty much, I mean, I would say 95% of what I read this year, I absolutely loved. I have no regrets about, and it was a great year of reading. Next year, you know, I think I want to read about the same amount. I'm probably going to be busier next year anyway, and so there'll be less time to read, but I'd be happy with this amount of books, and I'd also be happy with this quality of books. I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you feel inspired to read more or to, you know, to read in 2022. If you have enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like below, subscribing to my channel to see more content like this, to see more about what I'm reading and learning and what you can learn about too. I've been Ash Porter. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.